During World War II, innovation wasn't just about weapons, it was about survival. Every soldier depended on the gear that shielded them from rain, wind, and cold. But long before high-tech synthetics and waterproof camping gear, there was a secret World War II fabric so advanced that it quietly replaced traditional tarps, canvas, and oilcloths across the front lines. It was lighter, stronger, and so effective that its formula remained a military secret for years after the war ended. Before we dive into how it changed everything, make sure you subscribe to Strange History, where forgotten wartime science and survival inventions come back to life. Before this breakthrough, armies relied on heavy canvas tarps made from cotton or flax fibers soaked in linseed oil or wax. These tarps were reliable, to a point. They absorbed water, froze stiff in winter, rotted in humidity, and weighed nearly as much as a rifle once saturated. For soldiers moving fast, like paratroopers or commandos, a standard tarp could be a burden. In tropical jungles, mold devoured them. In Arctic outposts, they froze solid, and in deserts, they cracked under the sun. The military needed something revolutionary, a material that could withstand every environment without rotting, stretching, or adding weight. That's when a small group of Allied engineers and chemists quietly developed something extraordinary. Around 1943, research teams from Britain, the United States and Canada began experimenting with a new type of coated cloth that fused chemistry and fabric technology. So, the idea was actually simple, but honestly, pretty daring for its time. Take lightweight woven cotton and bond it with a rubberized or synthetic resin coating. The result was this siliconized or vinyl-impregnated fabric, which really became the ancestor of what we now know as PVC or nylon-coated materials. It was, well, completely waterproof, highly flexible even in sub-zero conditions, and way more durable than any traditional tarp. To the naked eye, it looked just like an ordinary piece of dull green cloth, but under strain, it behaved almost like armor. It didn't tear, stretch, or stiffen. Soldiers could, fold it into a small pack, unfold it in the rain, and use it instantly as a tent, stretcher, poncho, or even a vehicle cover. The material's exact formula varied between countries, but one British variant, known internally as pneumatic fabric number 7, became legendary. It was originally designed for inflatable rafts and aircraft fuel bladders, but once troops realized how versatile it was, it started appearing everywhere. The real genius of this secret World War II fabric was in its microscopic coating. Engineers found that by dipping or spraying cotton fibers in a thin layer of synthetic latex mixed with carbon black, they could create a surface that resisted not only water, but also ultraviolet damage and chemical degradation. Unlike canvas, it didn't rot when exposed to sweat or sea salt, and unlike wax tarps, it didn't stiffen in freezing conditions. It also blocked odor and bacteria, making it surprisingly hygienic for field hospitals or food storage, Its resistance to tearing was unmatched. In tests, soldiers could drive tent pegs through it, pull it tight under tension, and the fibers wouldn't fray. Quite impressive, right? If punctured, it could even self-seal under heat or pressure, a property inherited from its aircraft applications. Pretty fascinating, don't you think? Soon, engineers realized it wasn't just a tarp replacement, it was an entirely new class of military material. By 1944, this fabric had made its quiet debut in the field. Paratroopers used it for lightweight shelters, command posts and ground sheets. Engineers built inflatable pontoons and portable fuel tanks from it. Even medical units carried rubberized stretchers that could double as flotation devices. The United States military applied similar technology in its so-called jungle tents and waterproof ponchos. The fabric was strong enough to carry wounded soldiers, yet light enough to be rolled into a belt pouch. Some GIs joked that it was the tarp that could do everything but shoot. When compared to the old 15-pound canvas sheets, the new fabric's weight savings were dramatic. A single roll could cover a field vehicle or make a small shelter at less than half the weight, and it wouldn't tear even under artillery wind. This made it ideal for airborne and mechanized units, soldiers who needed to move fast and travel light. Because the fabric's coating involved new wartime chemicals and processes, its full composition remained classified through the late 1940s. Allied engineers feared it could be used for chemical-resistant gear or fuel bladders by adversaries. Only after the war did small traces of its development appear in declassified manufacturing records under names like, vinylite-treated cloth, Buna-coated textile, and silkspan rubber laminate. When peacetime industries finally gained access, it revolutionized consumer products, tents, raincoats, inflatable boats, even truck covers. Companies like DuPont and Goodyear refined it into nylon-reinforced vinyl, which is honestly the direct ancestor of modern tarps, rainflies, and outdoor gear. In a way, this single military invention quietly birthed the entire outdoor equipment industry. Today, not many people realize that the same waterproof backpack or tarp they take on a camping trip actually has its roots in a 1940s field lab. Back then, soldiers just called it rubberized cloth, but for them, it really meant the difference between misery and survival. Every now and then, vintage collectors stumble across samples of this material, still flexible and intact, even after 80 years, and, well, modern tests show its resilience actually rivals that of current high-end synthetics. That's honestly a testament to the craftsmanship and chemical brilliance of an era that solved problems with pure necessity. It wasn't glamorous like radar or the atomic bomb, but this humble fabric arguably saved just as many lives, keeping troops dry, gear safe, and hope alive in some of the worst conditions imaginable. In 2025, as we face extreme weather and global supply challenges, the lessons of this invention, well, they ring true again. Durability, repairability, and adaptability, the same qualities that defined the World War II field fabric, are what make sustainable design possible today. Engineers now study wartime materials like this to understand how to build long-lasting biodegradable composites that can, actually replace single-use plastics. That's the irony. A military secret designed for destruction ended up inspiring some of the most resilient, eco-friendly materials we use in peacetime. So the next time you unroll a waterproof tarp or open your camping tent, just remember, its origins trace back to a war zone lab where desperate engineers solved one of the simplest but most vital problems, keeping soldiers alive and dry. It was the fabric that made tarps obsolete, a quiet revolution hidden under the rain and mud of history. And like so many forgotten World War II innovations, it still shelters us today, in ways few ever realize.